Pretty fancy setup.
Not that fancy.
It's pretty fancy. We did, Geddy Lee did his Bass Players Are Human 2 thing. And I had done a similar thing with Norman Reedus. Norman Reedus drives across the country on his motorcycle and meets up with people. I did his thing. We kind of went on the boat, did a couple things. I did one with Momoa. He's a buddy of mine. He came to the house, hung out. We did some things, drove around in my van. And then Geddy came out and did his thing. And I swear, you'd think they were making, a freaking Spielberg film. They had makeup people and catering and tons of cameras and sound people and all this shit. I was like, holy mackerel, they spent some money making that thing.
Okay, so Les, for the record here, there's no makeup involved.
That's good. Whenever I would do one of those shows like Conan or Letterman or whatever, they'd put all that stuff on you and I would just walk out of the room and wipe it off. Because you see those guys on TV and they got the pancake makeup on. I go, why doesn't anybody tell them? That looks weird,
Yeah.
And especially now with HD, it's even more intense. And I don't think a lot of the makeup people have caught up with the notion. They're like, well, this is the way we did it back in the 70s, Years ago, we were out doing, I think, Much Music up in Canada.
Oh, yeah.
And we ran into Kirk, Metallica guys.
Yep.
I think it was maybe Kirk and Lars, but Kirk was there. He's an old high school buddy of mine. And they had just done an interview, and he was coming. He's like, hey, man, hey, what's going on? I'm looking at him like, holy shit. He had all this makeup on. I was like, God damn. So then we put mine on. I just kind of wiped it off.
When you were going to high school with Kirk, was he a year ahead of you?
Yes.
Did you guys jam together back then?
A bit, not a terrible amount. He actually tried to get me to sing for his band. We had algebra together. And he sat behind me in algebra, and he would always go, hey Claypool, check it out, man. I still to this day remember this ad. You may remember this ad. It was the ad for a Stratocaster where the guy's holding it, and he's going, it's a rock machine. And the guy behind him's going, no, it's a country machine. And someone else is going, no, it's a blah, blah, blah machine. And he's like, here's my guitar, Claypool, man. This is the one I'm getting right here. And then he got his Strat. But he'd sell me bags of weed, and he'd hear me coming in. I'd always be singing some song, Zeppelin song or Aerosmith or Foghat or whatever it was back in the day. And he's like, man, you got to sing for my band, Claypool. And he gave me these cassettes of stuff to listen to so I could go audition for his band. He wanted me to learn Sunshine of Your Love. But also on there was Hendrix. I'd never heard Hendrix before. I was,
wow, okay.
14 or whatever, 13.
Yeah.
And so he turned me on to Hendrix and all these different things. But I chickened out. I couldn't, I had to, back then I was total Bobby Brady, just croaking and cracking. So I chickened out, but I met this other guy that needed a bass player. And there was a guy who had this bass for sale for $15, some old piece of shit. And actually it was $30 and I had 15. I said, Dad, can I borrow $15? This guy, he's like, is that really what you want to do? And I said, yep. He's like, well, let's go down and talk to Al's Music. It was a buddy of his. And we went down and we got a brand new P-bass copy Memphis. And supposedly Al cut him a deal. I don't think he cut him a deal. But anyway, I got this thing and I had to pull weeds all summer to pay for it. And then I was instantly in a band because nobody wanted to play bass back then. Everybody wanted to be Eddie Van Halen. So bass players were a very rare commodity. So I was instantly in a band. And it wasn't Kirk's band. And I didn't find out till years later that he was kind of pissed at me for bailing on his thing to go play bass in this other band.
Were you friends with other people that were in bands in high school? Were there a lot of bands at your high school?
Yeah, there was this pretty interesting musical community around the Northeast Bay. It's like, the Green Day guys went to high school with my brother, and obviously Kirk and me. And
what kind of gigs did you have back then, Les? Would you go out and play bars or anything, or
no,
what?
Hell no. We played keggers in shitty neighborhoods, and our guitar player would get us ride there with our gear, but not a ride back. And it was, biker bars, and it was, it was pretty. But they put on these gigs in the park with a lot of, metal bands. It was like, but metal was different back then. It was before Metallica. In fact, Kirk's first band, Exodus, Tom Hunting was the drummer, and we had jazz band together. And he was all about Phil Rudd. It was all about, AC/DC. And they were kind of an AC/DC, not a cover band, but they sounded a lot like AC/DC when they first kicked off. But no, we just put together these gigs in the park or gigs, somebody's backyard or whatever.
Why the bass?
Well, I always figured I was starting late. I always wanted to play something, but it was always like, well, you'll never finish. Oh, it's like the swim team. You didn't finish the swim team. You're not going to do that. It was one of those things. And I was 14, and I thought, oh, I'm starting late. Oh my God, everybody starts. You hear Ted Nugent talk about, I got my guitar when I was 12 years old. You hear all these things, and I was like, I'm late in the game. So partially it was in demand.
Yep.
Because nobody wanted to play bass. Everybody wanted to be Van Halen. Also, he only had 4 strings, so I thought, this will be easier. And then I just liked the sound of the bass. I remember years ago, it was in junior high, there was a talent competition, and there was 2 guys and a drummer playing Ramblin' Man in the cafeteria through little Fender Champs. They'd go through and I just remember going, that's the instrument I don't want to play. I didn't know the difference between the 6-string one and the 4-string one. They didn't have a bass player. I was like, that's the instrument I don't want to play. The funny thing about it is it was Todd Huth, who later went on to be the original guitarist in Primus.
Yeah.
But I'd go to, back then I belonged to this thing called D Malay, which was like junior Masons. And we'd always have these dances, and they'd hire bands. And there was this one band, Ivory Tower. They were the best cover band in the Bay Area. And we'd sit there and they'd play Roundabout, and they'd play Stairway to Heaven. They'd play all these tunes. And I remember going, man, there was a guy with a white Rickenbacker. I was like, that's what I want to play. The 4-string one, that's because it was sultry and sexy sounding, whereas the guitar to me always just sounded kind of wimpy and twangy and just didn't grab me like the bass. And then seeing guys like, Louis Johnson on Don Kirshner's rock concert, I was like, holy shit, that's the shit right there. You remember Don Kirshner's, right?
Of course.
Yeah. See, all these kids now, they're spoiled. I can go on your phone and see anybody playing anywhere, showing you.
You can see Don Kirshner's rock concert on your phone.
Can you really?
Well, it's all on YouTube.
I'm going to look that up because I haven't seen. But back in the day, the only way we'd get to see guys play is either go see live music or see Don Kirshner's rock concert. Or what was the other one? The Midnight Special?
Midnight Special, yeah. So, Les, how do you learn, just compared to today where anyone can pick up YouTube, not only can they watch somebody teach something, but they can actually watch the person that wrote something teach it.
Or they can watch hundreds of guys who learned it show you how. I mean, there's hundreds of people showing everybody how to play Tommy the Cat online,
And how many of them play it right?
I haven't really paid attention. I should go look, but I've yet to see anybody really play it correctly.
So how did you learn instruments back then?
Well, I got my instrument.
Yep.
And I immediately was in a band with this guy he become my best friend. And he was like the ripping guitar player, amazing guitar player.
Yep.
And he would show me, we only played original material. So he'd show me how to play his songs. And I'd have to go doo-doot, 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 doot-doot. And then there'd be like an improvisation section. I'd go doot, 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 or whatever it was. But he showed me, well, you got to go like this. And you'd hit your fingers against pluck this string and hit it against the next string. Okay. And that's what got me started. Then I got the Mel Bay books.
Okay.
And then I decided I wanted to play with 3 fingers instead of 2, and that kind of gave me, I was able to do the sort of stampede triplet thing a lot easier. And then of course, seeing Louis Johnson and Larry Graham and Stanley Clarke. But there was this guy, I used to work at this delicatessen, and there was this guy who I ran into several years ago at one of our VIP things. It was Grant Tokiwa.
Okay.
Japanese fellow, and he had this white PV bass, and he brought it to work one day, and he's popping away, and I was like, oh my God. And he showed me like the fundamentals of, okay, you hit this string and you go down to the next string, because a lot of guys just bang, and this was you brush the string and get to, and then it got me started.
Primus started when?
84.
84. You graduated in 81.
Yes.
Right? So then you have 3 years. What did you do in those 3 years before Primus? This is when you were starting to play in bands, but you were working jobs and things like that, right?
Yeah, my dad always said, hey, my dad was always very supportive. A lot of the other family, and it's funny because I didn't find out till fairly recently how unsupportive a lot of the rest of my family was. But he was always very supportive because I think he saw what was going on with my cousin, who I spent all my time with. And my cousin's been in and out of prison for the past 40 years. And what he was getting into, and he just wanted me to have a focus so that I wouldn't go down the wrong path. And music basically saved me from all that shit. And So he was very supportive of it, but he would always say, because we're all, my dad's an auto mechanic, my uncles were all auto mechanics, my grandfather was an auto mechanic. So he would say, hey, this music thing's great, but learn a trade. So I learned a lot of trades. I've busted tires, I've mixed auto paints, I was a bench tech at an audio company, printed t-shirts, shipping and receiving.
Tell me about your carpentry skills.
I enjoyed being a carpenter. I was a finished carpenter. I am not much for schlepping and framing and all that, though I did all that stuff, but I really enjoyed being a finished carpenter. But now I'm such a wuss. My forearms were like freaking iron back in the day. And I just bought this old miner's cabin up in the gold country, and I've been, we kind of fixed it up. It's still we call it the Grizz Shack. It's probably about the size of this room. And I was doing some work, just trim work and whatnot. And I was like, by the end of the day, my arm's hurting. And it's like, I'm such a wuss now. But I played in bands out the get-go. There was one band I attribute it probably the most to my development as being comfortable with my instrument, which was a band called the Tommy Crank Band, which they were a bunch of older guys. It was basically, I was like the Blues Brothers. They were a rhythm and blues band, and we'd literally play Hell's Angels bars all along up in Northern California. We'd do these gigs with the MMA, which was the Modified Motorcycle Association, which was just another way of saying Hell's Angels. And back then, it was like, if you had a Harley, you were an outlaw. There was no dentists driving Harleys back then. It was,
It's only dentists driving them now.
Yeah. It was before Arnold Schwarzenegger drove one in the Terminator. So we'd play these gigs, but we'd play, 3 to 5 nights a week, playing 4 sets a night, playing Booker T and the MGs and James Brown and Sam and Dave and Wilson Pickett and all these things. I was playing meter songs. I didn't even know who the hell meters were. I was like, oh, you got to learn this song. Okay. And it really, really made me a much better player. Like I love playing blues. Like we opened for John Lee Hooker one time. It was incredible. But I played the shit out of 145 for years in bars, So I very much enjoy doing that when I get the chance. But it just, you kind of got to go on autopilot when you're working during the day, and then you're playing 4 sets a night in some bar, and you're drinking, and you're underage. And bikers had some material that a lot of people indulged in back then that helped keep you awake. So it was an interesting time, but it was an incredible learning experience for me. And all the guys in the band were way older than me. So in fact, one of the drummers was Dave Bartlett, who was the drummer that took over for Dave Garibaldi in Tower Power.
Yeah.
Great drummer. And he would always tell me, Les, Rocco would do this. Rocco would do that. Les, you got Rocco, you're not doing, Rocco would do this. And I'm like, after a while, I was like, fucking I'm tired of hearing about Rocco. But of course, Rocco became one of my biggest influences too. Rocco Prestia from Tower Power.
So Les, what were the early gigs like? How many people were you playing in front of? What was it like?
Well, it was very much like most bands that start. So it was Primate at first. And it was just me and a drum machine, a Linn drum, and a 4-track Fostex. And that's what I wrote. Too Many Puppies was the first song I wrote.
Too many puppies, a big shot in the thigh.
And it was twice as fast. It sounded more like B-52s than it does now. It's all click, 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 click. And the only reason I started my own band is I didn't like the way other singers would sing my stuff. And I never had confidence in my voice. I didn't start gaining confidence in my voice until doing the Oysterhead stuff and even playing with Shiner. Sean Lennon's have been very instrumental in helping me.
Which, of course, is way later on.
Yeah. So in the early days, I was just, I'm singing to cups and shit. If you listen to those early recordings, I'm singing into a cup. I sound more like pop. I remember Chuck D, when I first met Chuck D, he's like, man, you sound like Mr. Magoo and shit, So I always felt like, and one of the greatest compliments
You have to explain these things. I don't even think people know who Mr. Magoo is anymore,
Jim Bacchus.
Right.
How about an old fashioned, just like the way good old dad used to make? So for me, I was more narrating the songs. Mm-hmm. So here I had the song Too Many Puppies, where I'm recording it in my little apartment in El Sobrani, and my roommate, Kern the Butterchurn, the first drummer I ever played with, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago, his girlfriend was the preacher's daughter, and he had the keys to the church across the street. So I went across the street and set up my Fostex on the frickin' on the pulpit, yes. And I sang too many puppies. I did it the way I would do it back then, and recorded, and that was the first Primate recordings. And then I heard from Todd Huth. He was like, "Hey, I hear you're looking for a guitar player." And I was thinking, no way, not Todd Huth. He was like, he played like Angus Young and Tony Iommi, and I wasn't looking for that. I wanted like the next Fred Frith or the next Adrian Belew. That's what I was into.
Yes.
You know? And then he shows up, and Todd's just such a freak. He's really a genius. He's the things that come out of him are so unbelievable, and his sense of time is completely different than anybody else's. We used to call it Todd time because it's just not even close to 4, but you can't figure out what it is. And he came and played, and it matched, and it was great. And that was the beginning of. And then Primate became Primus because we got a phone call. I got my answering machine. Remember those?
Oh, I do.
Came home from work one day and said, because we were getting local airplay on this radio station. Big Rick Stewart was playing us, and I come home one day and says, "Hello, this is such and such from the band. I represent the band, the Primates, and you must cease and desist because we blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Ah, shit!" So we had to change our name, and it's kind of a lazy story.
So changing your name was like you have to just make your posters with a different name, then, right?
Correct, because we used to be Primate with this monkey on it, but we just lazily looked in the dictionary, and the root of Primate was Primus, so we just went with that. But years later, like maybe 5 years ago, I meet this guy. I forget where I met him, maybe at one of the VIPs or something. He's like, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Scooby-Doo. I was in the Primates." And I was like,
"No way.
Your attorney called me years ago and said cease and desist, left a message on my machine." He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "That was me. I was just bullshitting."
Oh my God.
Yeah, he totally just played it off. So I was,
Les, Primus is a far better name.
You think so?
Definitely,
All right.
no question. Okay, so then the story that I know you've told many times about auditioning for Metallica, so that would have been in, what, 86 or so?
Yes. And it was odd because, Primus was getting pretty popular at that point, and we had just done this Battle of the Bands, which I've never been a fan of these things, but we did it at the Stone in San Francisco, and it was us and Faith No More, who nobody knew either of us, and this other band who I can't remember their name, and of course we all lost and the other band won,
of course,
and but Cliff was at the show, and it was the first and only time I met Cliff, and he was very complimentary, super nice guy, and he enjoyed my playing, and then a couple months later he was gone, so I get the phone call from Kirk. And I didn't know shit about the metal scene. We were more a part of this whole world beat scene that was going on in San Francisco with the Looters and Big City and Freaky Executives, which is where Jay Lane came from. And plus we were these weirdo guys. Nobody knew who to put us with. But I had Ride the Lightning because Kirk, he was my old high school buddy and he gave me one of his albums. And I used to listen to it before I'd go to work every day as a carpenter. When I'm in the shower, I'd crank it up and get me going. But I didn't know much about the scene, much about their music, so I had to learn Ride the Lightning, some of the stuff off Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets. And I was like, as I'm learning, I was like, holy shit, this is pretty amazing stuff, because it was very intricate compared to, all the stuff we had been doing at the time, which was more like Public Image Limited type stuff. And I went to do, but I had no idea how popular they were. And I went to do the audition, and I'm wearing like 2 different colored tennis shoes, some baggy like chino pants, and I had like a newsboy cap on and a half a mohawk. And I come walking in with my bass that looks like a hunk of driftwood. And I had to go down this hallway, and they're like, okay, so don't be nervous around the guys, and they're gonna be over. And I'm just like, well, I wasn't nervous until you started. It made me nervous the setting up for the meeting or whatever, because I didn't realize how big they were. And then I meet everybody and we start jamming, and I'm playing through Cliff's rig actually, and I just remember we're playing, and Kirk's looking over at me and he's going, "You're too loud." So I had to turn down. I'm like, okay. And then we did, I think the clincher that is they go, okay, let's do For Whom the Bell Tolls, and I'm like, okay. And I'm standing there,
right,
and I'm waiting.
Intro.
I'm waiting to be able to go.
Intro.
Dun, dun, dun. I thought that was my part. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was bass. And so James just kind of looks at me and shakes his head and plays the part, and we played it. And I didn't get the gig. But I was very excited of the notion of, wow, if I get this gig, I can quit my carpentry job and I get to go to Japan, because I think that was one of the first things they were doing, was heading to Japan. But it was not to be.
Okay, so how did Primus get a record deal?
I mean, everything with Primus, even to this day, is every very step by step, baby steps, baby steps, baby steps.
This is back in the days when people actually had record deals and they were A&R people, and there used to be a music business. I think people don't actually realize this anymore.
Yeah, I don't even know what goes on now. But we were just becoming popular in the Bay Area.
How many people would you draw to a show?
We could fill a room like this, like nobody's business. I mean, I don't know. We were getting up 700,000-800,000 people.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Early on, I remember getting another one of those on probably the same damn answering machine. This is such and such from Polygram Records, and we've been hearing about you, and we'd like to, because we'd send demo tapes around, never get any response. And it was always, you guys are interesting, but we'd really like you to work with a producer, and maybe would you ever think of getting a lead singer? And you guys think of getting, how about putting your hair up, like you're getting, they wanted us to like.
Sure.
Do what be like
glam.
Cinderella or whatever the fuck. Being a part of the world beat scene was a huge thing for me. And when I say be a part of it, I worked for these guys. I was like roadie for these guys. Mm-hmm. And we'd go to the shows, Looters and Big City and Mackenzie, and it was this amazing San Francisco scene. And I just watched it wither away because they made these bad decisions. They got this big time manager who totally fucked up the whole scene by trying, as opposed to the metal scene, which was underground, and they worked the underground thing and created this new thing. Yeah. They were trying to make this new oblong peg fit into the square hole of the mainstream music industry. And I watched all this happen. I watched these amazing bands just fall to the wayside because they were trying to fit in or whatever. And I just said, I'm not doing that. Fuck that. We're just going to keep doing our thing. And we made Suck on This. We recorded it. My dad loaned us $3,000 so we could print up 1,000 copies of it. And we recorded it live on a little Tascam 388 reel-to-reel 8-track. Mm-hmm. Did it in 2 weekends. One of the shows was with Faith No More at the Berkeley Square, which is probably twice the size of this room. And we put it out, and it started getting airplay. Our manager was brilliant and was able to get us on. We would take them around to stores. In my Carnegie, me and Lert Stone out of our minds drive around to stores. Oh, wow, man, they took 5. Wow, they took 5. Cool, okay. Oh, they took 3. Okay, and we'd all East Bay and Marin. But then he got us on college radio, which all of a sudden that was a big thing. Yeah, college radio. A lot of us wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for college radio. There'd be no Nirvana or. That's
right. College radio in the 80s, late 80s. Was a big thing.
It was monstrous.
Really big.
It was that was the farm leagues or breeding grow, whatever metaphor you want to use. College radio and CMJ were, like I said, I'd still be playing in bars for Hell's Angels. So we made Suck on This, and it made enough money that we were able to make Frizzle Fry ourselves. Mm-hmm. So we actually made Frizzle Fry before we signed the deal with Caroline, and Caroline was great too.
And where did you make that? Did you make that in the studio there?
We made that in a studio at Different Fur in San Francisco, 19th and Valencia. And it was a similar thing. There was this engineer there that they wanted us to work with, and we're like, we want to do weird shit. And so we brought in Matt Weiniger, who produced the first Suck. We actually engineered the whole thing. The Suck on This record. He was in high school when he did that, and then we used the second engineer from Different Fur and made Frizzle Fry, and then we had sold like 80,000 of those things, and we were getting courted by different major labels, and then all of a sudden Tom Wally showed up at our show. I think it was at the Stone in San Francisco, and he was there to see the opening band.
That's always the story.
Never even knew who we were.
Yeah. Explain who Tom Wally was.
So Tom Wally, I think he came from Capitol, but he basically came to the show, saw the energy of our crowd, came backstage and said, "Hi, I'm Tom Wally. I'm A&R for this new label called Interscope Records, and I want to sign you guys." And didn't know anything about us, didn't know we'd sold 80,000 records. He just saw what was going on in the crowd and what we were doing on stage and said, "I want this." And another pivotal thing, if it wasn't for Tom Wally, I don't think we would have done what we did, because he brought us to Interscope, which my manager's like, "Oh, we don't want to go there. They haven't done anything. The only thing they've done is Gerardo, with Rico Suave. Wow, how's that going to?" And I said, "No, this guy wants us because of who we are.
Right.
Had no idea we sold 80,000 records. And we just hit it off, and then we met all the people from Interscope, Leslie Gerard and Lynn McDonnell, and there's a ton, Laurie Earle, all these different people that were just spectacular. And Michael Papali, who I just saw the other day at Red Rocks. And we just had this vibe. It was like all our friends working our record, and they were excited to do it because they were excited to do it. It had nothing to do with bonuses or their stature at the label if we sold more than these other guys or whatever. And it was really the perfect storm for us, was meeting Tom Whalley and going with Interscope Records.
That would have been what year then?
90, 91. But Jimmy Iovine, he didn't get us at all. Okay. But he was totally upfront about it. He's like, you know what? He's like, I don't get Primus. I don't know where one song starts and another one ends. But I get Tom Whalley, and Tom Whalley gets you guys. And so they just let us do whatever we wanted. And it worked until the Brown album came along, and then they were like, hey, maybe you guys should work with a producer. There was all of a sudden they were second guessing us. But
so I heard Jerry was a race car driver on MTV.
Yes.
That was the first thing I heard of Primus. And I was like, what is this?
That's Hoser's Nova.
So unique. Sounds amazing too. In going back and listening to it today when I was setting up, the mix sounds super fat.
It's funny because anything I listen to, I immediately just start criticizing. But yeah, it does. It's amazing to hear what Lur's doing. It's amazing to hear what Herb's doing. I mean, that's amazing stuff. It's hard to separate yourself from it because it's such a huge part of the last 30 some odd years of my life,
To me, that was just so unique at the time. There's nothing that sounded like it. I mean, there's really nothing that sounds like it even now.
Well, we were the monkeys running the asylum or whatever metaphor you want to use. Herb showed up. First of all, we got to go to Fantasy, which was wow, we're going to a real studio. Oh my God! Again.
You guys produced the record, right?
Yes, it was back with us and Ron Rigler engineering it, and we're at Fantasy, which. It was in Berkeley, which was where we lived, and we were in the room that Aerosmith had recorded something or other in, and we're like, whoa, real studio. And Herb shows up with this brand spanking new drum kit, never even had taken it out of the box. It was a pork pie kit, and he's in there setting up this behemoth kit by himself and eating up all this time, all this studio time. We're like, what the hell? And he played the kit, and it's an odd sounding kit. Like you listen to the kick drums, and they were tiny. They were like
yeah, that really
floor
small
toms.
Yeah.
So it's all pit, 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 pit. But it's amazing sounding, and it fits perfect with the way the bass is, and that's what I remember listening to that. I go, oh, I remember Herb showing up with those drums and blah 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 blah. And I remember Interscope, even at the time, were like, we'd love for you to work with a producer. If you work with a producer, they were always pushing producers. And I was like, no, we want to do this on our own. We want to work with Ron Rigler, who did Frizzle Fry with us. We want to do it on our own, and we were very adamant about it. And so we're gonna let you go do this on your own. So the first time Tom Whalley showed up at the studio, he comes walking in. And me and Lur are behind the glass. I'm playing clarinet, and I forget what the hell Lur's playing, like accordion or something. I don't even know. And it's just some weird outtake track, and we're squawking. I don't play clarinet. And that was the very first thing he saw of us.
Les, these are in the days when every signed band used producers.
Yes.
This is extremely unusual to let a band produce their own record.
Yes. But I didn't know that. I just knew that. I mean, look, when people want you, you get bargaining power. So this other label wanted us, and Interscope wanted us.
Right.
So part of our thing was, well, if you want us, you got to let us do our thing. And Tom Whalley, he fought the fight for us. He always would say, no, let these guys do, it's working. Let these guys do their thing. Let these guys do their thing. Let these guys do their thing. Until, like I said, Brown album, and then everybody was like, ugh, wait a minute, that album sounds quite a bit different.
Pull out the cannon boys, steal us some wine. Puff tea on smalls, shake half a beef.
And it didn't sell as well as the one previous. Maybe you guys, and so that's why the next record we did, we worked with a bunch of different people as producers. But for a while there, we were, we we hadn't shit ourselves yet. So they let us just do whatever we wanted.
And what kind of touring were you doing back then?
I mean, we did the, we opened for U2. That was we supported them, actually. That was pretty amazing. And Jimmy got us that. And I think Papali got us the Rush tour. We were on the Rush tour. We did a lot of stuff with Fishbone. We did the Public Enemy Anthrax tour. Prior to that, we did like the Jane's Addiction Pixies thing. And but at that point, we kind of wanted to do our own tour. And there was one thing that I've always regretted. This is right around this time, Don Muller, who was our agent, who's a spectacular man, great guy. He said, hey, how about I'm putting together, we want to do a co-bill Primus and Nirvana. And this was right as Nevermind was just coming out. And I'm like, no, we want to do our own tour. We want to do our own tour. Because we had been doing these, 45-minute sets, short sets, opening for all these bands or playing with these other bands. We wanted to do our own tour and play a full set. I'm like, no, we don't want to do that. And we didn't do it. And of course, the whole thing blew up. And I never really, we never really ever played with those guys.
Did you ever see him play or not?
I saw a show, it was at the Cow Palace, which was a pretty spectacular show. It was the Chili Peppers with Nirvana and Pearl Jam. I think Pearl Jam was opening. That was pretty amazing. But that was one thing I regretted, because I think we would have had a good time on that tour.
Wow.
Because we always became really good friends with whoever we played with, because we're fun guys. And I think it would have been a good thing. I'm friends with Chris now.
When you toured with U2, what year would that have been?
It was the Zoo TV tour,
Yeah.
so whatever that was.
Because I swear that you were the opening band when I saw that tour.
We played Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, maybe Yankee Stadium. I have to.
Well, there was a couple things that were amazing about that tour. One was that me and Lur made a point every day to go try and find the giant football helmet golf cart.
Right.
And take pictures in it. So we would do that. And then the other thing was we'd be playing, and it's whatever, 50, 70,000, however many people these places hold.
Yeah.
And we were support, so it was kind of filled up by the time we went on.
Yeah.
We'd be playing, you'd hear from way over here, Primus sucks! And you'd hear from way over there, Primus sucks! And the U2 fans would go, oh, give them a chance, oh, how rude, they didn't know that those were the people in the know, those were the, so we got a kick out of that.
When you got forced to start working with producers, how did that change?
I wouldn't say we were forced. Interscope was always amazing. I have zero complaints about Interscope. It was a big change because Herb had left the band.
Yeah.
And when Herb left the band, we were like, okay, we're not just going to get another guy like Herb. We're going to get whoever we get, and we're going to tailor what we do to whoever we get. So we got Brain, who's a very dear friend. And he was all about like Bonham and Terry Bozzio. So all of a sudden he had this giant kit, and we just said, we're going in the opposite direction. And we got this old analog 16-track, 1-inch 16-track, and this old Amec console. And he had this giant Vistalite kit, 26-inch kick drum. And we made the Brown album. And we engineered it ourselves, the whole bit. There's no edits or anything on it because it was before Pro Tools. And it's just this big, ugly bastard. But it's funny, Jack White literally 2 weeks ago told me, he was coming to our show, he said, play a bunch of Brown album. I'm like, okay. He's like, by far the best sounding Primus record ever. And I was like, really? And it's Tom Waits' favorite Primus record. So, Tom says, it sounds like it needs a good wash. So it's kind of become, and our new guy, John Hoffman, he's like, oh yeah, when that record came out, we were all kind of freaked out because you guys went from like this Neil Peart, Bill Bruford kind of playing
progressive band kind
to
of.
all of a sudden like Bonham and these big,
right.
heavy distorted tones and whatnot. And he said at first, he said, me and my friends were like, what the hell is this? And he goes, but then it's kind of become like this cult film that when it came out tanked, but people have glommed onto it. So it's very interesting to hear, especially from someone like Jack White, that, oh yeah, those are the best drum tones of any Primus record. And I'm just laughing because I remember just pegging the meters, tracking all that shit.
As you're making records and doing this stuff and deciding, we want to change our sound, you're also gaining knowledge in like how to record things in studios.
Theoretically. I mean...
Or was it just experimenting?
It was a lot of experimenting, but you know, you learn more by failure than you do, I don't know, whatever people say. But you know, I'm a bit of a control freak.
Yeah.
I like to drive when we're in a car. I like to be the one driving. You know, I just told you I like driving my own bus. Drive my own bus. I like flying airplanes. You know, I just the way I am. You know, and so when I'm sitting there watching somebody fiddle around on the console, I just want to grab it and start doing shit. You know, and now it's and it has been for decades now. It's just easier for me just to do it because I know how to do it. But that being said, I've been stepping away from it more because it's so much work. I mean, I'll mix a song like 20 times.
Where do you go listen to the things to decide that you get the mix right?
In my truck or car. The phone's actually pretty good, surprisingly.
What do you mix in Pro Tools now?
I do now, yes. We were analog guys for years. I have a 2-inch 16 track. I have an ATR half track. I have an old API console, which we still do everything through, which I absolutely adore. But it's all in Pro Tools now, just because it's just so much more convenient. And I've A-B'd back and forth. It's very hard to tell. And it's not so much, a lot of these guys that can deal with this stuff are either retired or they're gone now.
We're talking about like teching stuff, right?
Correct.
Yes. It's really hard to tech tape machines. You find people to do it. It's hard to tech consoles. Do you know your way around a console pretty well as far as teching?
Yeah, so my API, I know exactly where to kick it when the relay sticks on the right channel.
You're actually serious about that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll turn
about
it on, and you can hear it warming up, and then I'll play something, and it's just kind of the right channel. I just give it a kick. It's a relay stuck.
When you're making records in the 90s and it's all analog, and then people start moving over to making records in Pro Tools right around 2000 or so, are you like, I don't want this. I think digital sounds bad. We don't want to do that.
No.
Did you start incorporating things then?
No, we were the Pork Soda. Pork Soda was recorded on ADATs.
Okay.
So that's as digital as you can get.
Yeah.
That was the low bit rate. That was some,
Well, they did have 24-bit. They had 16-bit first, then it was 24-bit late. The last ones, but by then it was people were using Pro Tools pretty much.
Oh, we did our first. Pork Soda was on ADATs, and we were very fortunate. Our sound man, he now owns Ultrasound, but he worked for Ultrasound, which was the Grateful Dead sound company. Do you know Ultrasound? Yeah. And we rehearsed in their space. We had access to all their gear, and Don Pearson was an amazing, genius audio guy who basically started that and built a wall of sound with the Dead and all that stuff, and he's the one that got me into APIs. But they hot-rodded their ADATs back then, changed out the DDA converters to make them, they sounded way better. Like you AB them with a stock ADAT. It wasn't as pristine sounding. But it was all through the Dead, The Dead was always cutting edge on everything.
Oh, yeah.
So we got the benefit of that knowledge. So we had ADATs, but they were all hot-rodded. So they sounded pretty damn good. And like I said, Pork Soda was ADATs. My Holy Mackerel record actually started on Fostex reel. Tascam reel to reel. But Tales from the Punch Bowl. Those were all ADAT records.
Amazing. When you're recording on ADAT, you were mixing through your console then, through your API?
I didn't get my API until early 2000s when I did this Frog Brigade record called Purple Onion. And I had this Amec console, and I was halfway done with this record, and I get a chance to get this API console, and I think it actually used to belong to the Chris and his brother from Black Crows. And I get this thing, it's in pieces, and me and this buddy of mine, who is a tech for us, put the whole thing together and got it all together. And so halfway through the record, I plug everything in and run it through the API. I almost started crying. It was like I'd been driving my car for hundreds of miles, and I finally washed the windshield, because it was the same stuff, but the clarity and the breadth and the depth and everything was just all of a sudden. Like I said, it was like somebody washed the windshield.
Didn't Trey he had an API console at his barn when you were doing Oysterhead, right? I'm pretty sure it was API.
If it was a newer one. Mine's old. Mine's like from 72 or something. It's got the old 550As and
all the good stuff.
Yeah, it's very cool. But, it's also very finicky. It's always, there's always something going out on it.
So Les, you have many different basses. I looked at your gear over the years. You had that rainbow bass. How many different woods is in that thing?
I'm not sure. That's the genius of Carl Thompson.
Yeah. Talk about Carl Thompson building basses for you.
When I was in high school, my dream bass was Rickenbacker 4001. I wanted one so bad. I wanted one. That's all I wanted. I had this P-bass copy. I finally had enough money to go get one, and I went to Leo's Music, and I got talked out of the Rickenbacker and got talked into getting an Ibanez Musician EQ. Which is basically the same bass that Sting was playing at the time, but his was fretless. And the reason being is the guy was like, look, try and thump and pluck on a Rickenbacker. It's very difficult. And he was right.
Because the strings are close together, just the way it's set up.
Yeah, it's a weird balance, but they sound
amazing.
And so I didn't get the Rick, and I got this musician EQ, which I loved, and I kept it all polished, and I really, that's where I really started excelling at the thumping and the plucking. Then one day I was at the music at Leo's again, because you just kind of go hang out at the music store, and I see this Carl Thompson piccolo bass sitting there. I was like, holy shit, I'd only seen one on Stanley Clark's I Want to Play For You album.
Yeah.
He had all his basses laid out, and he had like 3 of them. And I was like, holy shit, and I picked it up, and it was like, ah! It was like butter. I was like, oh my God, this thing's incredible. $650. I was like, ah. So I think I had like $300 or something. And I had talked to this guy there. I was like, he's like, $650, that's not a dime less. I'm like, shit. So I go and I'm calling everybody I know. I'm borrowing money. My mom loaned me some money. We didn't have a lot of money. And so I go back with $650. I said, hey, okay. He had marked it up to 1,000.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, and I found the guy, I forget his name. I said, you told me $650. He's like, yeah, Leo came in, said there's only a handful of those around. He wants $1,000. I'm like, but you told me I got $650 right here. So he goes in the back and he comes back out. He's like, okay, I'll do $650 in tax. And I was like, okay. And so I gave him the $650 and I wrote him a bum check for the tax.
Nice.
And I got the bass and I played it that night. Actually, we played the band I was in, which was this progressive metal band, Blind Illusion. It was us and Exodus that night at the Oakland Auditorium Ballroom. And I played that thing that night. And it was just, and it became my bass. And I put the whammy bar on it. And I played it for years and years. And then I was at NAMM show, one of the last time I was ever at NAMM show. And this guy comes walking up to me, he's like, hey, look at this. And he had the 6-string fretless Carl Thompson bass. And I was like, wow. I said, someday I'm gonna get me one of those. And so years later, I met Carl and I said, hey, I wanna get a 6-string. He goes, I'll build you whatever you want. And this nice, super nice guy, sweet guy, wonderful guy, building these things in his little apartment in Brooklyn. He said, I'll build you whatever. I said, I want a 6-string bass. And so he's like, okay. And so halfway through him building it, I go, I want it to be fretless. Because I thought, I needed to be something different. And I needed a challenge, which was ridiculous. And so that's why the bass has the lines in it, because he took the
frets out.
He hadn't put them in yet, but he had already cut it for them. Oh. So he put the lines, so the lines were in, which was fine. And that became my bass. And it was like, wrestling an octopus. And that's where Jerry Was Race Car Driver and all those songs kind of came from. And people always go, oh, tapping, you do this tapping. All I was really doing was trying to be Tony Levin, because Tony played the stick, but the stick confused the shit out of me. I was like, there's no way I can do that, but I can do some of that stuff on this fretless bass. But that's all just me trying to be Tony Levin.
You played a 6-string for a long time, and then you're back to playing 4 strings.
I mean, I do them all. I mean, I have a 6-string fretted, I have 6-string fretless, I got my 4 strings, my upright's a 5-string, but it's got a high C, not
Yeah.
a low B. I mean, I play 4 strings the easiest. For me, it's the pencil I can draw the best with, you know. But I played Carl's for many, many years, and then I just wanted something that was my own design that was, because Carl's basses, he is the greatest luthier for basses on the planet. He's like Stradivarius. His basses are like works of art, but they're all very unique from each other. They're all very different. And so you kind of tailor your playing to his instruments. And I wanted something that was designed specifically for me with these different, and that's how I came up with that's the pachyderm bass. That's my new model. That's actually brand new. I just got that one. It just balances in your lap, you know, like, because a lot of times I'm working on the console and this, I don't need this thing to strive. But so I have 2 models of this. This is kind of we call this the Sleek. It's the new one. It's a little more slender, and this woman Megan helped me design it. She's got a very sexy aesthetic. Like it's way more feminine than my other basses. And then I have these other ones that are I call them the Imperials, that me and my buddy Dan Maloney, who I've known since high school, he actually was the older brother of these 2 buddies of mine that were twins. One of them unfortunately passed away just out of high school, but he drove us to our first concert, which was Rush Hemispheres at the Cow Palace.
Wow.
So Dan Maloney drove us, drank 3 warm Lowenbrows and threw up in the parking lot. But I've known Dan since high school. He would make instruments, guitars and stuff in his woodworking class. And he made me a couple instruments over the years. And then he and I developed the pachyderm basses. And they just keep evolving and evolving, because I'll go, I need this to balance a little here. Or, having it balance on the strap is different than it balancing on the lap.
Yes.
And it's a compromise to get them to do both.
Is that why this is longer up here? Because it's not just a design thing. It's just because that adds the weight to keep the balance of the bass where it's not.
Yeah, you don't want any
neck diving.
You don't want any of this stuff.
Yeah.
It'll wear you out. But check it out. Like I'm
not heavy at all.
No, I'm an old guy. I got to have ergonomics.
That's maple, right?
Yeah, this is big leaf maple. Like I said, these are kind of the
That's beautiful.
less bells and whistles. The other ones have lights and stuff, and these have little diamonds as markers. When we did the Rush thing, I finally got a Rickenbacker. In fact, I got a double neck. And
After all this time.
all this time. I mean, I had a couple over the years, but I never really played them live.
What'd you think of it?
Oh, I mean, I love them. They're amazing. But it's like driving a 68 Camaro. It's like, fucking this thing's badass. Oh, man, it's amazing. This is like a Ferrari. It's just so simple and easy.
It's very easy to play.
Super easy to play.
Yes.
And I don't like a lot of electronics, Van Halen style.
Yep. Just
And-
volume.
And I like the action to be fairly low on the body, because
Okay.
if it's too high off the body, your fingers kind of get hung up when you're plucking. So it's a very easy instrument to play.
Okay, talk about the using the whammy bar on here.
Well, it's just. Yeah. Just, fun stuff. And it kind of stays in tune.
When you're actually designing this,
Yes.
how do you know what you want exactly?
Well, this is probably the 10th design. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many variations. It started off really skinny, way thinner than this. It always kind of had this hook up here,
Yeah.
which is a bit of a tribute to Carl.
Yeah.
And but also to my fishing experience. But Carl always had these cool scrolls. I knew I wanted my pegs on the top.
Yep.
So I'm not reaching around. It had to be ergo. It had to fit really well when you're I used to practically sleep with my Carl Thompson bass growing
Okay.
up. It'd sit in my lap. I could be on my couch. I could be in a chair. I could be in bed. It just felt good. And a lot of instruments don't. Like this is just perfectly balanced here. I mean, it's kind of wanting to wander a little bit, but not too bad.
When did you start using EMGs? Why do you like EMGs?
Pretty early on, because they always. I had Bartolini's for a while.
Yeah.
I think I may have tried some. My original Carl Thompson had Ken Lawrence, I think, was the pickups that were original. And I immediately put the EMGs. EMGs, they just leap out. You can hear every little, they're a little more mid-rangey, which is kind of my tone.
Yeah.
And plus those guys are super, super cool over there. They've always taken very good care of me. They make these for me now. I got the fancy chrome ones and I got some gold ones.
Yeah, I've never seen the chrome ones like that. That's cool.
It's like a 69 GT 500.
You played all different kinds of bass rigs.
I don't use much in the way of speakers. Most of my sound I'm trying to get through my ears. I'm a big believer if you can't, like I never use an amp in the studio. I think the folly of a lot of guys is they're feeling it more than they're hearing it. You know, so I try and keep the levels as low as I possibly can so that what I'm hearing is true. In the early days, I had no money. I didn't even have an amp. And then when Todd Huth joined the band, he let me borrow his old PV guitar amp, and I used that head for a while with this old EV cabinet that belonged to the bass player from Translator. Do you remember Translator?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I had that set up for years, and then I did a record with that metal band, and part of the deal was that they would buy me an amp, and so they got me that SWR head. And then once I got to where I could play what I wanted, I played Ampeg for a long time when they were St. Louis Music. They always took really good care of me. They made great stuff. Even their crate stuff was really cool.
Yeah.
I played Boogie for a long time. A really good, dear old friend of mine and friend of Kirk's, John Marshall, has worked for Boogie for years. They've always taken really good care of me. But I kept kind of gravitating back towards the Ampeg stuff because it was just had this dirt to it. But I avoided the big old SVTs for years because I used to have to haul them around when I worked for the World Beat Band.
Yeah.
They were so fucking heavy. But every
Did
time...
you ever play B15s, anything like that? The flip tops?
I have one. I have an old original one.
Yeah.
They're cool. Every time I'd go to South America or something, you know, they'd rent me some gear, and they'd always bring in an old classic SVT head.
Right.
And I'd plug it in, and it would just sound amazing.
Yeah.
I barely have to do anything to it. So I finally broke down and got into the old classic SVTs, and they all sound different. And I changed tubes on them and did all kinds of shit. They all sound different. They sound great, but they're all a little bit different. So the consistency's tough. They're a little finicky. So I got off. I don't use those anymore. And I'm just doing my pedals, power amps, through these little boogie cabinets, these little 12-inch cabinets. There's only 4 of them, so it's not that big. And then I'm using API channel strips and Neve channel strips.
Use those as like your pre's, right?
Yeah.
You go to the front of house?
Yeah, but I'm splitting them so that one side's API and the other side's Neve.
Okay, why? I may have different transformers and stuff and the different sounds, but...
Just to get different tonality from, you know, different depth, you know, as opposed to having them both be... So it's when I do my stereo thing and I have one of those... the hell's that little box? It's like a Leslie box, so I can zip my sound from speaker to speaker.
What's your recording rig like as far as playing bass? Do you go direct and
I go direct
with a
my
particular
pedal,
preamp or no?
Well, through my API.
Okay, through API, got it.
Yeah.
As far as effects and things, you got a bunch of different kind of effects to use, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of these guys, because I don't like learning new shit,
Yeah.
is I'll use the same thing for a long time, and then I'll change everything. And I'll use the same thing for a long time, and then I'll change everything. So I used to work for ADA back in the day, so I used...
Yeah, you used those ADA, what were those things with the blue buttons there?
Yeah.
What were those?
It was one of the first programmable guitar preamps.
Yeah.
And I worked for those guys, so I used to test them all the time.
When did they make those? When were those big? Was that in the 90s, early 90s maybe?
Early 90s, late 80s was when they first kind of started coming around.
Yeah.
They started off as a delay company. They started off as making one of the best flangers ever.
Yes, ADA made great flangers.
Yeah. Well,
Were
Dave
those things,
Tarnowski-
were they different presets or something on the front?
Yeah, it was different. How you could set up the different parameters. You'd set up, I can't remember how many presets you could do, but you could switch maybe between 4 different ones. So I had like a clean, I had dirty, a little bit dirtier, and then way over the top dirty. And I used those for years. And then I've got this old Korg, whatever the hell it is. I don't even know what it's called. It came out, they were in the late 90s, and I bought it just for this one gig. And I would just use it as my, hey, I'm going to go do this little sit-in gig or whatever. And now it's been a part of my pedal board for years. I have probably like 6 or 7 of them, because whenever they pop up, I buy them, because people know they buy them because it has one of my tones in it, you know?
Right.
And they're hard to get now. But whenever I see them, I grab them. But that's part of my rig. Jack White gave me one of his, looks like a telegraph. Have you seen those pedals?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an octaver distortion with like telegraph buttons on it. He gave me one of those, so I use that. And I had one of those fractal things for a while, the AX8 or whatever, but it was too confusing for me. I don't like having to hook my computer up to something to be able to turn it up or down. I like knobs.
When you're working on writing, what's your process for that?
I mean, it depends. My phone is full of different ramblings of lyrics, a lyrical idea or just a thought or just a phrase. There's all kinds of notes on there, or it used to be actual notebooks. And then it's full of riffs. That's the wonderful thing about the phone is
my God.
You get a riff, I can record it,
That's right.
And then I go listen to them every now and again and go, oh, that's a good one. And I'll put a different color on it, so I'll go, oh. And then when we go to record something, I'll have it. Or sometimes I just sit down and write a song if I have a notion in my head.
When you write a song, will you do a demo of it, or will you just actually record it kind of from scratch?
I mean, it depends on what it's for. If it's for Primus, then I'll say, hey, I got this riff, check it out. The last thing we did was this thing when we got our new drummer, this. I had that riff for the Little Lord Fentanyl, because we wanted to test out the drummers, the finalists, on how they did in the studio. Mm-hmm. So we gave them the recording, and I gave it to Lur, and Lur came up with his guitar part, and I had the lyric, and it was pretty much formed by the time everybody got it. But sometimes it's just bits and pieces. It's always different.
What's the hardest thing to play live and sing?
Well, there's a song DMV, which we just don't even play because it's so fucking hard.
Okay.
It's one of those, I wrote that when I was a young guy songs, and I probably can't even play it. I wouldn't even play it on this, but it's like. It's something like that. But I play it on a 6-string, so it's even harder.
Yeah, so how do you even play any of those things? It's incredibly hard to play bass and sing.
Yes, that's why I didn't do it for so many years.
But how do you even get good at doing that?
You just gotta practice. It's like I'm confused by guys that can play the piano. It's like rhythm and melody. I'm like, well, how the hell do you do that?
That's exactly what you're doing there.
Yes, but I'm doing that. Tommy the Cat, I had that bass part, And I knew I wanted to do that, say baby, do you want to, because I had that line. And it took me forever, to be able to, hey baby, do you want to lay down with me? Baby, do you want to lay down by my side? Baby, do you want to lay down with me? It makes no sense to be able to do that. And if I think about it, like I was having a hard time just then because I was actually thinking about it. You got to get it so that the part is in your subconscious so that you can just do whatever over the top of it. And that's where just playing it over and over and over and over and over. I had to deal with that when we did the Rush Tribute to Kings thing, singing Geddy's parts, which are up in the stratosphere, and playing the bass and doing those damn keyboard parts too. So that was a real challenge.
Geddy Geddy did some incredibly difficult parts playing and singing.
Yes.
Andy would play keyboards.
Yes.
Andy plays Taurus pedals.
Yes. I agree with all of that. He is a phenomenon.
He is.
And I've sat and played with him and over the years, multiple times, and he still kicks the shit out of me. He still plays shit. I go, how the fuck are you even doing that?
Okay, so Les, I got to ask you about South Park. South Park's been in the news a lot lately.
Why?
And for some reason. So how did you get involved with those guys?
Well, those guys were big Primus fans. From what I understood so Jason McHugh, he was part of and he's actually out with us now. He's a very dear friend. He produced this film I made, this parody of the hippie scene called Electric Apricot, but we've known each other a long time. But he was part of the original South Park crew. Before they were even South Park, they all went to Boulder together. They made, Orgasmo and Cannibal the Musical and stuff. And as they were making the South Park pilot, they would listen to different music. And the only one they could all agree on was Primus.
They'd use like a temp music, right?
No, they're just like listening as they're working.
Okay, all right.
Hours, countless hours with crepe paper cut. And they, as like dudes do, you put on some music. Well, I don't want to fucking hear that. Trey liked one thing and Matt liked another thing. And, McHugh was a big deadhead. But the one thing they could agree on, from what I was told, was Primus.
Okay.
So they thought, oh, wow, what if we could get Primus to do this? And they originally approached, they were trying to get me to do it because I had a little solo thing. And I said, well, no, we just got a new drummer in Primus. We'll do it. But we never thought it'd get on television or anything, because we just saw the Spirit of Christmas. That's hilarious. These college kids. And we did it. And the funny thing is what you hear at the end of the South Park episode is what we actually gave them. It's much slower. It's one of the greatest guitar parts Lur's ever written. And so they got it and they said, hey, well, we love this, is great, but Comedy Central thinks it's too slow. Can you do another version that's faster? And we're like, well, we're on tour, hey, these guys are not even going to get on television.
My God.
We're just like, just speed it up. So they sped it up. And then it became...
I'm going down to South Park.
And they came to one of our shows, I think it was Deer Park or something, and I re-recorded the vocals into a little tape recorder. And they took it back, put it together, and then they took over the world.
I mean, were you shocked at how big it?
I'm continuously shocked.
I mean, it's one of the biggest things ever on TV.
But first of all, they're amazing guys.
Yeah.
Like, have you talked to them?
No.
You should talk to them. They're incredible guys, immensely talented, but they're just great guys. They're just dudes hanging out, making each other laugh. When we worked with them on the South Park 25th anniversary show for the Red Rocks, watching them together was so hilarious, because they're just dorking on each other the whole time, just saying goofy shit to crack each other up. And it's like, and there it is, and that's what becomes the shit. It's like me and Larry Lalonde. We have this sense of humor that probably most people don't understand what the hell we're talking about. We're referring to some old Adrian Edmondson, Rick Mayall thing that nobody's probably ever seen, and we're cracking each other up. And we have our thing, when we get together. And those guys have this thing, but it has resonated with the entire planet. And it's wonderful, because they're both spectacular, very intelligent guys, incredibly creative guys, they're just guys, they're just dudes, So I applaud them always.
I mean, it's amazing at how long that's gone on for. It's, what is it, 20, 27 years, and now it's going to continue on? It's amazing.
The first time I hung out with Matt is he showed up, I think we were playing Horde Fest.
Horde, yes.
And I think it was down in Irvine, and here comes Matt, and he had his big fro back then, and he's just like this goofy dude, and he's hanging out. And for some reason, these girls that were hanging out backstage thought he was Mark Sandman from Morphine.
Right.
And he could not convince them otherwise, so he just played it off. Hey, I'm Mark Sandman. And the whole day he's hanging out with these girls that were just all over him, hey, I'm just having a great time. It was his first kind of rock and roll experience, because they hadn't really taken off or anything yet, He's like, hey, what's happening, man? I'm Mark Sandman. And he's just a fun-loving, great guy.
I always ask this question to people. Les, what is a perfect song? A song that you think is, when you heard it, it's like, this song resonates with me.
I mean, there's stuff that I geek out on. I love, Rain Dogs by Tom Waits, but I mean, I always say, Don't Fear the Reaper is a fucking amazing, it's an amazing recording, it's an amazing composition. It's, every time I hear it, I turn it up. Roundabout by Yes, I turn it up. Atomic Dog, that's one of I crank that fucking thing all the time. There's certain albums that I've bought multiple times in my life.
Give me a couple of them.
Well, Fragile.
Okay.
I've purchased that record multiple times in my life, whether it was a cassette or another album because I lost it, or digitally, or it's just, to me, that's one of my all-time favorite albums ever. Because it also represents my youth.
Yeah.
That bass tone is the greatest bass tone ever.
Speaking of Rickenbackers.
Even Geddy, I remember years ago, I'm hanging out. Oh, I met, is it Eddie Offord, I think? Wanted to produce Primus.
Yeah, Eddie Offord produced Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we talked to him, and I was like, I don't know, we kind of do our own thing, blah, blah, blah. I go, I want to get that. He goes, if you work with me, I'll get you that Chris Squire tone. And he told me, he's like, what we did is we did this and we ran him through the marshal and we turned all the bass down on it, blah, 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 blah. And so I was talking to Geddy because we were on tour with him. I was like, yeah, I met with Eddie Offer and I asked him about the Chris Squire tone. He told me, he's like, oh, what did he say?
What's your favorite Rush album?
Well, I have to, a part of it is because it meant so much to me is Hemispheres. That was my first concert. That night changed my life. I got to see Pat Travers with Tommy Aldridge and Mars on bass, and then see Rush in the same night. And I was like, my 14-year-old mind was completely blown. So Hemispheres is, but we ended up recording, touring with Farewell to Kings.
Okay, so those two records, for me, those Rush records, those are, because we're basically the same age, and those two records are high school for me.
Yeah.
When I think of Rush, in their prime, now Rush became even bigger, obviously in the 80s, but I think of those records, and I love the sound of Hemispheres. I think it's an amazing sounding record.
So I went with Dan Maloney driving the van with his brother Mike and Joe, and a couple, I think Kern was there, and Mark, our old guitar player. We all piled in the van and bought some beers at Nick's Delicatessen because his Italian guy would sell the miners, but it was always warm. We drove to the Cow Palace from the East Bay, drank all the beers. Everybody had tickets but me, so I bought a scalper's ticket for more than what back then it was like $7 or something. I probably paid 10. And we get there and it wasn't even sold out, so I could have just bought a ticket at the gate. And saw the show, bought a bootleg, threw up in the parking lot, saw this amazing show. But you could actually get into the show. It wasn't like, and then Permanent Waves came and shit.
Oh yeah,
you couldn't get tickets.
They really blew up.
Yeah.
I interviewed Rick Wakeman and there was a B3 who did it at a studio in town here. And when he went and played the keyboard solo on Roundabout, the organ solo, he just ripped right through it. And it was one of the most exciting things for me. I was standing right in front of it and he's just playing it perfectly. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, I never got to see them live in that era. I saw them in the Owner of a Lonely Heart era.
Yeah.
Which was great, but it was
very different.
It wasn't it wasn't Fragile.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to see. But I missed a lot of concerts back then, mainly because I just didn't have any money. But I would always be working with my father on weekends. On weekends, we'd either be working on some old crappy rental property that my grandmother had, digging post holes or whatever the hell, or we'd be out fishing. So I'd come home and my friends would go, we got tickets to the Stones. Because Stones tickets went on sale Sunday morning or whatever the fuck.
You're like, I can't go.
Did you get me one? Oh, sorry, dude. We got tickets to the Zeppelin. Did you get me one? Oh, sorry, dude. It's like, I don't know how many times that happened to me. I missed out on so many shows because I was with my dad or whatever and wasn't standing in line at the record factory to get tickets at 9 in the morning or whatever.
So your dad was a car mechanic, right?
Yes.
And are you pretty handy with cars?
Yeah.
You can fix anything.
I can fix a lot of shit, but I try not to. He still yells at me. What the hell are you doing working on that shit? You're gonna mess up your hands. Jesus, But sometimes I just don't like waiting for somebody to come do it.
If something went wrong with the bus,
I'm always working on the bus.
Okay. You just get your tools out and you start working on it?
Yeah. I've been on the side of the road multiple times, me and the driver, trying to get a fan clutch to engage or whatever the hell,
What's the hardest thing to fix when you're on the side of a road that's still fixable?
Well, so years ago we had our first bus we call La Fonda. It's a 40-foot Prevost, had a 8V92, which is a 2-stroke Detroit diesel in it. Nobody works on them anymore.
Okay.
We played Deadwood, had a day off the next day in Denver. And me and my wife wanted to go through Mount Rushmore and all that. So we spent the night, stayed on the bus in Deadwood, got up the next morning, the bus wouldn't run. It would run, but it was just blowing smoke. It had no power. I'm like, holy shit. I'm on the phone with everybody. Oh, it's got to be bad fuel. It's got to be this, got that. I got it over the hill and down into Sturgis and parked in this parking lot. Couldn't figure it out. It must be intake. Well, no, the air filter's it's perfectly clean. Well, you should get another one anyway. So some guy came out from 50 miles. I'm reaching up in the intake, making sure that the turbo's still spinning, not while it's running.
Yep.
And can't figure it out. It's just blowing smoke, no power. And finally, my guy's like, look, there's a little breather valve up towards the top of it by the Jake. Just go up there and spray a bunch of carb cleaner in it and see what happens. So I'm spraying around. All of a sudden, I notice I'm looking, and the Jake brake, do you know what a Jake brake is?
No.
Okay, so a Jake brake is on a diesel. What it does is it engages and it creates back pressure through the exhaust. This is a rough way, and it's an engine brake basically. When you hear a truck going downhill, it goes brrrr.
Oh yeah.
That's the Jake brake being engaged. There was this little piece of plastic that was broken off, and the governor for the Jake was engaged. So I picked this piece of plastic out, ran totally fine, got it to the next
Oh my
gig.
God.
But we went through everything trying to figure out what it was, and it was just this little anomaly, just some funky little thing that broke.
Okay, what about working on your basses? How knowledgeable are you on these things?
I mean, I'm pretty knowledgeable.
Yeah.
I've always taken them apart and put them back together and done all kinds of stuff. I could do all this, but I didn't.
Now could you build a bass?
I mean, I never have. I've done a lot of the shaping. Like whenever we get a proto, I'll sit there. I got all my tools. I got all my woodworking tools, and I'll do all the shaping and stuff.
What would you need to do on a prototype to actually make that curve?
Well,
like
I'll
that?
come up with a design.
Yeah.
And I'll trace it out on paper.
Yeah.
And then I'll cut it out of a piece of plywood.
Okay.
And make a fakey neck, and then I'll hold it. That's how I did the original ones, and see how it feels. Oh, I need to cut this out a little more. And then Dan would make me another prototype that was out of just 2x4s or whatever, and then I'd get it, and I'd take my rasps and stuff and shape it the way I wanted it. And then he oftentimes he'd make me one, like a real one, and I'd still get in there and this needs to be.
So you'd actually take stuff out. You would actually.
Yeah, like all this shaping. I did the original proto of all this stuff, and then Dan.
Yep.
Or in this case, Megan will take it and fine tune it. Like some of this stuff she does. That's gorgeous. Like this.
Is that done by hand?
Oh yeah, this is all
God.
handwork. That's why they're
amazing.
These things are expensive as hell.
Yeah.
And it's not because of all the electronics. It's because this is all handwork. It's got fake diamonds in the neck right here, so that the cast. My other ones have LEDs, but these are the cheaper models.
Is that an ebony fingerboard? What is that? Because it looks, it is ebony, right? Are those stainless steel frets on it? Or are they nickel? It's hard to tell.
These are nickel.
Okay.
Some of my other ones have gold frets. They're a little tiny bit brighter.
Interesting. Why ebony?
I like the look of it. I don't like maple.
You've had a lot of ebony fingerboards.
Yeah, that's
on
all
bases.
I go with.
Yeah.
I like the dark.
Is it a color thing, or you like the tone of it?
That's more of a color thing for me.
Yeah.
I don't.
It's interesting because this is it's not black. It's it seems like it's got a little bit of different color. It's not like a jet black ebony.
Well, it's hard. It's getting harder and harder to get pieces that are one color. I mean, I've had basses. They're all a little different. I mean, it's just like a Strat or a Les Paul or anything. They all sound a little different. Even I've had basses that are made from the same wood from the same tree, and they sound just a little bit different. I've got 2 walnut basses right now that are going up for sale pretty soon. That they sound very similar, but you play them and you can hear the little nuances that are a little bit different.
Okay, what do you think about people that talk about, the wood makes a huge difference in tone?
Oh, it's totally true.
Do you know that there's people that argue against this all the time?
They can argue all they want. I'll sit there with it. I'll pick up the exact same basses and play them, and they'll, the thing is it's hard to get one that's. It's hard to get one that has a punchy bottom end,
yes,
and still crispy up top. It's always a compromise.
Yeah.
And when you get the balance, that's you get a nice. It's either the bottom will be a little murky, and then you get a clear top, or you'll have a thin bottom and a more transparent top. It's always so getting the balance, and it's all subjective too. It's like what I like isn't going to be necessarily what Robert Trujillo likes.
Yeah.
But what happens with me is they'll make basses, and then I play them. I go, this one, I love this one, and I'll play it for a while, and I'll go, no, I'm going to go back to that one, and I'll go, and I'm always, but I end up keeping them, and then I'll sell the ones that I don't keep, but very rarely. Sometimes I'll sell them for charity. But there's a couple basses that are coming up for sale now. There's 4 of these that are coming up because we just said, fuck it, let's make a bunch of these.
And how many basses are you taking on the road with you typically?
I'll take 2 4-strings plus that.
Okay, so can I get this?
Oh, yeah, that thing's amazing. This is my hillbilly bass.
Isn't it hard to play with the resonator right there? Because can you get your finger under it?
You know, you would think so, but it's actually not too bad. This thing's actually surprisingly easy to play. I have a few of them, but I keep going back to this one. And it's just some cheapy thing I got off the internet.
And what kind of pickup is that on there? Is that one you put in? EMG,
yeah,
okay.
The EMG guys put it in for me.
Yeah.
But it's just like a plywood body. It's not like a fancy thing.
Les, how did you learn how to slap? Was it just listening to records, or that guy that you worked with
Well, so he's the first one that showed me. Just you go down, you go through the. A lot of guys go into the string. I go through the string to the next string.
Okay, like a rest stroke or something almost. Yeah.
And then you just kind of start by going, or. You know, that was always the. But one of the greatest concerts I've ever seen in my entire life was me and my buddy Flounce and Fred when we were in high school. We went to see Isley Brothers with Larry Graham supporting. It was just Graham. It was Graham. It was the 1 in a Million You tour.
Yep.
And then SOS Band, first of three. And we show up, and we were like probably the only two white guys in the entire place.
Yeah, of course.
High school kids. And place was packed, but as soon as SOS Band was done, because they had that huge hit, you know, the old.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it.
As soon as they played, a lot of people left. And then Larry Graham came out, and just, it was one of the greatest performances I've ever seen in my entire life. Totally changed my world. And then Isley Brothers came out. But Larry Graham stole the show. I remember he had this song, The History of the Bass, and he would talk about the thumping and the plucking, the thumping and the plucking. And I hear, and people, you know, I'm sure people think I'm just being an old curmudgeon, but when I hear slap bass, it always makes me go, no, it's the thumping and the plucking. Because that's Larry Graham's the one that got us all doing that shit with all his thumping, and he called it the thumping and the plucking. That's what we always knew when we were in high school. Hey, you thumping, I'm thumping. All right, we're thumping. And then it wasn't until later on when, you know, in the 80s, me and Flea and guys like that were getting popular, they started saying slap bass. Well, slap bass, I have a friend that plays slap bass on an upright bass, you know,
It's like that.
you know, and I can't even do it. And he kills on it, you know, and I can't even do it. And that is, to me, that's slap bass.
Okay.
This is the thumping and the plucking. And then this is all Stanley Clark type stuff. So.
Okay, Stanley Clark, School Days, that's the stuff that you were...
Yeah, I used to be able to play it. I don't know if I can play it anymore. Something like that.
So who were the guys that you were, you know, kind of your bass idols?
Well, Geddy Lee and John Paul Jones were the original guys.
Yep.
And Chris Squire.
Yep.
And then like I said, I never had any money, so I didn't have very many records. And we had this friend, Kyle Martin. His walls and his ceiling were all tiled with album covers. And we'd go hang out at his house and we'd listen to music and smoke weed. And he would say, you know, Les, Geddy Lee's, because I'm a Geddy Lee, nobody's better than Geddy Lee guy. You know, I was a little shit. And he's like, you know, Geddy Lee's great, Les, but you need to listen to some Larry Graham and some Stanley Clark. I'm like, oh, they're not going to be better than Geddy Lee. There's no way, you know. So then he played me some Larry Graham. I was like, whoa, that's pretty badass. And then I saw the I Want to Play For You record at the record factory or whatever it was, right in the front. I was like, whoa, and I bought it. And it had all those pictures of his basses, and I just became a total Stanley nut. I loved Stanley. And then Larry Graham too, and then Louis Johnson. A lot of people overlook Louis Johnson. You know, Louis Johnson was a monster.
Amazing.
And a fellow by the name of Dexter Redding, who was actually one of Otis Redding's kids. Those were my guys. And then I became a huge Tony Levin fan. Tony, if I had to pick one bass player that I just think is the all-around most amazing, tasteful, everything he does is incredibly tasteful. You hear him in any context and you go, oh, that's Tony Levin. His tone, you hear him on that Pink Floyd stuff. And it's like, that's Tony Levin, but it's Pink Floyd, So he's a huge factor in my world. And another guy who doesn't get near the recognition that he should. Well, actually, Matthew Ashman from Bow Wow Wow was he was badass. But Mark Sandman, I've always been a huge Mark Sandman fan. 2-string bass, tuned in unison, played with a slide guitar. Another person who I think is overlooked quite a bit is Paul Simonon, right? The Clash.
Yeah, The Clash. Yeah.
He has some amazing bass parts.
He's got some great bass parts.
Yeah, they're very melodic. They're fucking huge pocket. Great player.
You were a big Peter Gabriel fan, right?
Huge, yeah, especially early Peter Gabriel.
Talking like like the first records, right?
Yeah, but
Up Through So or something like that, or
yes,
what?
2 of my all-time favorite concerts ever was Peter Gabriel 2 nights in a row at the Greek Theater Berkeley on the Security tour. That's another record that I've bought many times. That's one of my all-time favorite records, is Security. We've covered songs off of that.
The first record that has Salisbury Hill on it. Well, those first few records are just so...
Well, it has The Intruder on it, right?
Yes.
That was my version of it anyway.
When Tony, when I'd ask him about bass parts, coming up with bass parts for on these classic songs like on So and Sledgehammer and stuff, and watching Tony sit here and play the stuff, the sounds are just, it's really amazing, and that he, his conceptual thing for coming up with bass lines that not only speak through the mix, that are incredibly melodic, and they have the rhythmic drive to, it's really like a perfect blend of...
Well, he's incredibly supportive.
Yeah.
He finds his spot. But then he's just this amazing anchor, and it always has a twist to it that makes it his. And then on top of that, he has this tone that I still don't know how he gets that tone.
Yeah,
it's like a Chris Squire tone. But it's unique to him. It doesn't sound like Chris Squire, but it's a very unique to Tony tone.
I'd interviewed Daniel Lanois, and we talked about the So record, about Tony's tone on it and everything, and it's. Still going back to that record, the bass tones are just incredibly good on it.
Yeah, I saw the beat thing, Danny's playing with him. And it was incredible. And I've learned Tony's parts over. I'm the worst. I get called out for it all the time online. I play everybody's parts wrong. I always learn them wrong.
Les, everybody plays your parts wrong too. I'm sure if we went to YouTube right now and watched anybody doing a takedown of one of your parts here, you'd be like, no, that's not right.
Well, when I did that, so years ago, Getty wanted me to be in his big book of basses or whatever. He has this book about all these basses. Really cool book.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, come out. And he interviewed me. And I said, but the catch is you got to show me the proper way to play YYZ. And he's like, okay. So we do the interview. I go, hey, you got to show me. And he played it. And I've been playing it wrong for 30 years. I was hitting the right notes.
How do you play it? Do you remember it?
Well, no? I think I go. That's the way I played it. But he goes. I can't even do it. He does it. But I used to always go.
I've always said that the way that people used to develop their styles, maybe they still do, but is by learning things on their own incorrectly.
Well, that's my whole career.
And that's and that's
I played and recorded Thalahun Ginji countless times, and I was playing it wrong the whole time. And I learned that from Adrian's bass player. She said, "No, you're playing it wrong. This is how Tony told me to play it." So
this tour that you're on right now, Les, how long have you been out on it? What's where are you guys going now?
We're heading across the South. So we're New Orleans, I think, and then Shreveport, and then Arizona, and then heading towards home. But it's our first tour with Hoffer, our new drummer, John Hoffman.
Yeah, and how's that going?
It's been spectacular.
You had like 6,000 people audition for drums, right? Something like that.
Yeah, it was over 6,100 applicants.
Was it that many?
But we narrowed it down to, I think, 10.
Okay.
And then we auditioned them and videotaped.
And how many
did you watch any of the shows? It's actually pretty interesting.
And how many of the ones did you actually listen to?
I listened to quite a few, but not like Tim Soya, who worked for us for years. He listened to everything.
Yeah.
And watched everything. And Lur did quite a few of them. He did. I didn't do near that many. They would put them in. We had a star system. Folders. 1 star meant this is really good. 2 stars meant, oh man, this is really, really epic. This is really great. 3 stars is like, holy shit. 4 stars is mean this person has to get an audition. So there wasn't too many in the 4-star folder.
Yeah.
But so I would go and look at the folders.
What do you look for when you're doing these auditions? Like, what is it just like that immediate chemistry?
Yeah, I mean, you can tell when somebody's got a flair and somebody's got their own style.
Yeah.
And they know how to attack their instruments like anything else.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of it's in your hands. You know, you talk about how certain people get certain tones. It's the way they attack their instruments, you know. So Stewart, we spent years trying to get that Stewart Copeland snare and hi-hat sound, you know, years. And we're tuning it this way, try this, these type of cymbals, these type of drums. And then one day we were up at the barn at Trey's house. We were just going to jam. And the only kit was Fishman had this crappy Ludwig or Rogers kit or something that was in pieces, just laying around with old heads on it, just like the polar opposite of anything you would think Stewart would play. He set it up, started playing it. It sounded exactly like Stewart Copeland.
Yeah.
It's how you attack your instrument. That was a big part of it. We wanted to make sure we found somebody that wasn't just going to come in and try and clone, you know, one particular drummer. We've had 9 different drummers, but 3 of them have recorded with us and people know their material. And obviously Tim Alexander is a huge part of that, as is Jay Ski and Brain. So we wanted someone that could do all of it. And we ended up with Hoffer, and he's been spectacular. And it's like every show he gets better and better. And we weren't even supposed to tour this summer. We were going to do New Year's and then the Sasanta thing, and then I was going to go off and do Frog Brigade or Delirium with Sean Lennon or whatever. But it's it's definitely reinvigorated us because we have this young guy who's a huge fan. So he's picking all these songs that we normally wouldn't even think to play. We'll play that one. And it's been really spectacular. So we're stoked.
The Sasanta thing with the 3 bands, that was kind of unlike anything. Just conceptually, it's really such an interesting concept for a tour to do that.
It was very much like the South Park show.
Yeah.
You know, it was like a big party on stage.
Kind of a nightmare of a setup though, with all the gear up there all at once.
You know, it wasn't. It really wasn't. It was fine. I can't think of anything that made me go, oh shit. I was more worried about, what am I going to do? Sit around? You know, I like to. You know, I watch the opening band every now and again, but I don't watch them every single night.
I walked around with Billy. He gave me and 2 of my kids a tour of the whole thing, and I mean, I see a lot of live shows and see the setups on stage, and it was pretty involved.
Yeah, but also Billy's stuff is pretty involved. I love Billy to death, but man, he has a very complicated setup.
He does.
I don't know. The whole thing was. I mean, we didn't have to do the second time around.
Yeah.
We did it because it was amazing. If they want to do it again, I'll do it again. It was super fun. We've talked about maybe taking it to Europe or something.
Yeah.
It was very, very cool. And like I said, I thought I'm going to get bored, you know, in between songs and stuff, but I wasn't. It was the whole thing was incredibly compelling and interesting and fun.
When you're traveling between shows, right, you're doing whatever. I mean, if you're not driving the bus, right, what are you doing?
Well, everybody's different.
Yeah.
What
do you do?
I don't like staying in hotels.
Okay.
I just don't like it. We go camping on days off.
Yep.
I drive the bus. You know, I'm here, I'm doing an interview, but normally I'd be at the gig right now. I might be working on the bus. I'm just servicing my generator. So there's always something to do. It's like a freaking yacht, you know. There's always something to work on. Or I'll just lounge around a bit. You know, Lur will go running or ride his bike. You know, that's not me. My wife's always with me, so.
When you're going to camp somewhere, do you have a thing that says, okay, we're going to drive here, we're going to camp here, because it's X amount of miles from where the gig's going to be?
I mean, it's usually within, you know, an hour to 3 hours of the gig.
Yeah.
And I try and find a place that's on the water, because I like to fish.
Yep.
I got my bike. It has my fishing pole holder on my bike, and I just hop on my bike and go ride off and try and catch something, you know. That's usually usually what the defining factor of where we stay is. I don't like staying too close to the gigs because I think people have kind of figured out that that's what I like to do.
Right.
Plus, I like driving, so I like getting up the next day and driving to the gig and having my coffee, and I enjoy it. I tend to have a better show if I'm not. If we get a hotel room, I'm just sitting around. Hey, you want to go find a Starbucks? Hey, you want to go eat lunch? Hey, is there a thrift store near here? I get bored in hotels.
And then backstage, you have any ritual that you do on the day of a show?
Not really. I mean, I'll play this a little bit. Usually just some hillbilly stuff. Just to keep warmed up. I didn't used to warm up at all, but I'm an old guy now. I got to warm up.
Come on.
Seriously. I never used to warm up. I just go on stage and play. But now it's like, hey, the little finger, go, there it goes, woo!
Is there anything that's tricky to play now that used to be really easy to play?
I mean, some songs, like I watched some, like, well, holy shit, we used to play Tommy the Cat that fast, Jesus Christ. But some of that too is just like, I don't jump around like I used to. I was like all over the place back in the day.
Right.
And to be honest with you, I kind of, some of that stopped because when we did Oysterhead, I remember Trey saying to me, Les, you don't always have to be putting on a show. Play your instrument. And it stuck to me. I was like, you're right. I don't know how many times I've compromised my part to be able to run over to that side of the stage or whatever back in the day. Now I just don't do that. I get to grooving, but I'm playing my instrument and I'm enjoying playing my instrument, And that's where my focus has been more for quite a while now.
What was it like playing with Trey and Stewart?
Well, at first it was like confusing because the whole thing came about as basically the Superfly guys who used to put on these, they started Bonnaroo, they used to put on these super jams during Jazz Fest. And my manager was working with Galactic, so he was, so all of a sudden he's in this world, this kind of jam world.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, we want Les to do a super jam. I'm like, what the hell's a super jam? Oh, well, that's where you get guys together and you just go and jam at a big venue during Jazz Fest. I'm like, all right, well, I know this guy. I know Trey. He's in that jam band. I didn't realize how big Fish was, for one thing. I had no idea. We had played with him years ago. It's my band Sausage opened at Laguna Seca, and I didn't know. And I saw him at the Warfield.
You don't know
years
how
ago.
big Fish is. You don't know how big Metallica is at the time.
I go fishing, but I called him up and said, "Hey, I got this super jam thing that they want me to do. You want to be a part of this?" He's like, I've always wanted to do a project with you and Stewart Copeland. And he's like, if you get Stewart Copeland, I'm in. I'm like, okay. And I found out years later that Brad told me, he's like, yeah, he didn't want to do it. He just said that because he didn't think you'd be able to get Stewart Copeland. I called up Stewart, and Stewart's like, I've been waiting for this phone call for 25 years. He was totally ready to go. So we get together. The first time we all get together was at that barn playing that shitty kit. We meet Trey up at his house when he had his place in Vermont. It's totally snowing. He's like, let's go snowshoeing. We're like, what the hell are you talking about? And he gets on his cross-country skis. He gives me and Stewart these snowshoes, and we put like bread bags on our feet to keep from getting, we're tromping through the snow, and it's hiking up this hill, totally getting worn out, snot's pouring out of our noses. We're like, what the fuck is going on here? Then we come back down, and that was our introduction to hanging out with Trey. And then it was like, oh, we're going to do this gig. And of course, Stewart's like, well, we need to do this. I have my pop sensibilities, and we need to be able to. And Trey's just like, no, we're just going to jam. Let's just jam. We'll write a couple songs before we're going to write all these songs before the show. No covers. We're like, what? What are you talking about? Yeah. And we basically just went and did this show with these songs that we had just written, and it had a lot of warts and pimples on it, but it had some magic to it. And then we made the record and whatnot. But for me, it was like, what do you mean people will just pay you to just like we used to jam in the garage back when we were kids? That people want to see that, And that's kind of what it was. And then they asked me to do another band, which became Frog Brigade, and then I got the whole notion of, hey, they want to see you take chances on stage.
Yeah,
it's. Primus had a little bit of the jam element to it back in the day, but not that much. We had certain sections we'd open it up, but now that's my favorite thing, especially with Hoffer. He really locks into shit, and is very intuitive as to what's going to happen next. So that's like my favorite parts of the shows now, is just going off.
Well, Les, I appreciate you coming in and hanging out today. You have such a unique style. Like everything about what you do.
I think it's pronounced eunuch.
You have such a unique
I
style.
have a eunuch style.
It's really rare to find people that are stylists like that and that have a completely original take on their instrument. I just think it's really, really cool.
Well, thanks. I actually watched your interview with Billy Strings last night, and I thought, holy fucking hell, how am I going to fucking follow up that thing? Because I've played with Billy. We're good friends. We've probably fished as much as we've played music together. But his recall and his repertoire is insane.
It's insane. He's got such a good memory for stuff, and the fact that he can just execute it flawlessly.
And he smokes a shitload of weed.
Yeah.
He's a good man, but I love that, because to me, I'm not big on favorites, but I always say my favorite musician I ever played with was Bernie Worrell, because he was classically trained, but he had, I will call it salt. He just had this amazing life experience, and everything he played, it came out through his playing. And he would do one little tiny thing, and it was always just the perfect complement to whatever the hell we were doing. And he was a man of many years and experiences and Bob. And Billy plays like a man of many years.
He plays like an old man.
Yes,
but with the energy of somebody that's really young. I mean, he's really just.
Well, but it's also a feather in the hat for his father, his upbringing.
Yes.
And I mean, I wish I'd have had something. I mean, look, I adore my father. I can work on a car like nobody's business. But God, it would have been wonderful to have that kind of musical thread from the time being an infant. I mean, I admire that. I just think it's a huge testament to his father.
Yeah.
And the way he speaks about him too. And I've met him. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he really. It's. I hope my kids talk like that about me when they're Billy's age. Like,
well, there's something to be said about living it. I see people like him, like someone like Eugene Hutz. He's kind of like that too. It was in his family. And they played these songs, and it's all this traditional music, and it's very cool. You just don't see that so much anymore.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. Well, Les, you're awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming by.
Thanks, man.
Really appreciate it.
And we didn't knock any headstocks off any
We didn't knock any headstocks. Thank God.